Welcome to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG, your favourite Formula 1 podcast produced by a British biased bloke with a massive Swede full of very questionable wheel knowledge. Broadcast live on YouTube and after the fact on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We have a good old natter about each and every Grand Prix of the season. My name's Tommo, let's talk about it. It's the final CHINWAG. Hello everyone, welcome back to TOMMO'S Race CHINWAG for the 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix season finale. It is done. Lando Norris is your champion of the world. Congratulations, Lando. We did do a little stream covering the end of the race, and we will get into the meat and the bones of the entire Grand Prix because, you know, it's vibes, right? Focusing on the end, three-way championship showdown. Lando gets it done by just 2 points in the end, which is kind of crazy, but we've got a whole other 19 drivers to talk about. So lock in. We're probably going to be about an hour and a half of your time. If you don't mind sticking around, then I'd appreciate it. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, interact however you can, and you will support what I do because don't you worry, the CHINWAGs will be back in 2026. Don't you worry. Welcome everyone in the live chat. DJ Harris, Young, Tyler, Lunard, IBK, Connor, Ferry, Sidith, YSF, Shep, Salma, Toby, and the rest of you. It is a pleasure as always. Live on YouTube, of course, I've got a poll going, starting off with a race rating out of 10. Please give me a number. Now, of course, this was the championship finale, which added a lot of intensity that wouldn't be there if this was just a random round within the middle of the season, right? So you have to kind of take that into account. However, even with that, we didn't really get any craziness. A late race safety car would have been pretty clutch. No driver DNF'd. Everyone finished the race. It was pretty safe. And it was a race that perfectly encapsulated where we are with these ground effect regulations. Because you look at qualifying and it was the closest qualifying I can ever remember. The entire field spread in Q2 was less than 4/10. 15 cars, less than 4/10 is barbaric. Like, it's so close. However, no one can overtake. So there were overtakes through the field. I've seen a lot of clips and replays of cars down the order, which obviously weren't shown on the broadcast, that made good moves and good overtakes, which maybe we would have seen a little bit more of if it wasn't the championship finale. So that also plays into it. So it wasn't the worst Grand Prix in the world. 8% of you have given this a 1 out of 10. 20% of you a 2. 33% a 3. And 38% of you a 4 or above. For me, I'm giving it a 3. Honestly, I think we can only take in what we see on the telly. Okay? And as much as the championship was the focus, we didn't really see any moves, did we? We didn't really see any overtakes. Apart from Oscar Piastri's first lap, one on the outside of Lando, obviously on those hard compound tyres as well. That was quite surprising to see, but he got great traction out of turn 7, didn't he? Through 8, which isn't really a corner, and then chucked it around the outside of 9. Lando didn't defend that one too hard. Wasn't really worth it, was it? He knew what he needed to do on the day, and of course he did get it done. I've given it a 3. I think if we'd have seen more of the battles through the field, then I could have given it a little bit more, but we didn't. So I need to judge the race on what most of us, 99.9% of us who don't attend these Grand Prix every weekend, see. And for me, it's a 3 out of 10. So not one to... it's a shame we end in Abu Dhabi because it is the kind of track that, I mean, again, talk about 21, that kind of late race safety car can happen at any track. That wasn't a track specific thing. But if you had an Interlagos end of season, for example, that would be, oh God, please one day get it back as the finale. That would be so sick. 7 out of 10 race, Alex. I mean, brave. Lando's double overtake. Yes, he made some good moves, to be fair, when Lando and Charles and George had to make moves through the field. They were stuck at the back of a bit of a train. Lando did put a decent little double overtake, didn't he, on Lawson and someone else. Lawson tried to come back at him, didn't he? But didn't get it done. And yeah, there was some moves there, but again, massive tyre delta. So, and of course pace delta because the McLaren is far quicker than the midfield cars. So yeah, okay, couple of double overtakes, but not all double overtakes are deemed equally. Like, he did well to get the moves done, don't get me wrong, but for me it's a 3 out of 10. So not one that will live long in the memory, but a championship fight that certainly will. So let's start with talking about qualifying, shall we? Where Max Verstappen, by just over 2/10, did 2 pole position laps. 2 laps good enough for pole position. A lot of people, he only got pole because Yuki gave him a toe. Well, he did another one, didn't he? And consolidated his position in P1 ahead of Lando Norris, and by 29 thousandths of a second ahead of Oscar Piastri, which, I mean, look, Oscar was P2 by the end of the first lap, so it didn't really make much of a difference. Maybe Oscar could have got a move done on Max, but then you look at the gap Max had at the end, maybe Max would have still found a way to win that race. If Oscar had got ahead, Norris is still finishing P3, so the same guy still wins the championship. It's just then it's Oscar P2 instead of Max. So didn't make a massive difference in the end. George Russell P4. I was kind of expecting a little bit more from George, but had a scruffy last lap, didn't he? Last push lap. Charles Leclerc P5. Seemed like a miracle given where that Ferrari's just been all over the place, particularly over a lap as of late. However, things were a bit different today, weren't they? Alonso P6, huge. Bortoleto only a couple of thousandths behind Fernando P7. Ocon finally waking up and delivering a P8, a performance I knew he had in his locker, but he's not found it for a while. And he was proper despondent on Friday. He felt like he had no pace, he was nowhere, and they changed a bunch of stuff on the car, and all of a sudden, boom, old Esty Bestie is back at his best, which is good to see. Hadjar P9, Tsunoda P10. Yuki did well to get into Q3, absolutely, after Antonelli was released into the side of him in practice, which damaged his floor. He had to go back to an old spec floor because Red Bull understandably wanted to keep a spare new spec floor available for Max if he did need it. And so even with this old spec floor, he still managed to get it into Q3. Again, gave Max a toe on his first push lap. And then I think Yuki might have messed up his second push lap, right? I think, maybe? I can't actually remember. But yeah, Yuki P10. And then Behrman, Sainz, Lawson, Antonelli, Stroll, Hamilton out in Q1 again. Albon out in Q1, who has been stinky as of late. I'll be the first to admit that. And once again, he's desperate for a holiday. Is Alex. Hulkenberg P18, way slower than he should have been. And then, of course, the Alpines. Gasly and Colapinto bringing up the rear. Yeah, it was track limits, was it, Tyler? Yeah, I thought it was something like that. I couldn't remember 100% whether it's track limits or he just aborted. But yeah, Yuki aborted his push lap, so he started P10. So that was qualifying. Boom. Which means the head-to-heads are now complete. All 30 qualifying sessions of the season are done. These are our final comparisons, our final head-to-heads. Of course, the biggest gap on average over the course of the season is Max Verstappen ahead of Yuki Tsunoda by 0.582 of a second. Second biggest, Alonso over Stroll, 0.327. Someone said in chat, who is that in chat who said, it's RWFX said 24-0 to Alonso versus Stroll. And UF1C said, did Alonso really get him 24-0? And I can confirm he did, because I've got my big spreadsheet, which is here. And every single time it's... Oh, is it? Okay, so... According to my spreadsheet, it's not. Is my spreadsheet wrong? Could be wrong. What happened between them in... Right, we need to dive into these details here. We're going off on a China sprint. Oh, right, okay. So, 24-0 doesn't include sprint quali. And I'm pretty sure in the China sprint, which I do include, 2025... Let's find out. Let's confirm. Did Lance out-qualify Fernando in China sprint qualifying? The answer is yes. He did. So, well done. Yeah, Lance did out-qualify Fernando in sprint qualifying. But in normal qualifying, it was 24-0. In other than that, though, I think it's 29-1. Because I think that's the only... I'm trying to look if there's another plus number on here. There's only that one there. I'm pretty sure it's 29-1. So I don't know what's worse. I mean, 24-0 or 29-1. What would you take? Alonso washed. Exactly, Dane. Couldn't put it better myself. But yeah, Alonso over Stroll by 0.327 of a second on average. Russell over Antonelli, the third biggest gap on average over the course of the season. Exactly a quarter of a second, 0.250. Then fourth biggest is Gasly Colapinto, 0.214 of a second. Fifth biggest, Leclerc over Hamilton by 0.185, less than 0.2, which I retain quite kind of respectable, given the context of Lewis being 40, and he'll be 41 by the time the new season starts, going into Leclerc's backyard, new team, new everything, right? And he's within 0.2 against the quali god that is Charles Leclerc. I don't think that's all that bad, I'll be honest. As much as the results have been poor as of late, also Charles has been struggling with that car, and it's his class that I think is saving some blushes, like the P4 he managed today. You know, I still think that's Charles carrying, in my opinion. Then sixth biggest is Hadjar over Lawson, 0.157. Certainly a lot closer in the second half of the season. I will maybe break these down. I want to kind of do a video going over qualifying over the course of the year, dedicated video, and I can use all of my stats, my big spreadsheet to maybe third it, I'm thinking. Like look at the first 10, middle 10, final 10 to see how these gaps changed over the course of the year. Maybe a deep dive qualifying analysis is needed, I think. Behrman over Ocon, seventh biggest gap over the course of the season by 0.124 of a second. This was big in the second half of the season where Ollie was slapping up Ocon left, right and centre, to be honest. That's the kind of best way of putting it. But Ocon did find something in Abu Dhabi, which was fantastic to see. And then the bottom three, very, very small gaps here between Hülkenberg, Bortoleto, 0.064 of a second, advantage Nico. This one went back and forth over the course of the year. Bortoleto at a point seemed to have him a bit done, you know what I mean? A bit done. But Hülkenberg over a lap is kind of cooking, right? So 0.064 of a second. Well done, Nico. You win out that one. Then Sainz over Albon by 0.013 of a second. So very, very close between those two over the course of the year. As much as Albon has struggled as of late, Sainz struggled at the start. And for a variety of factors, it's been a tale of two halves. But I'm definitely, I can tell you what, a spoiler for my preseason predictions, I'm definitely predicting Sainz finishes ahead of Albon in 2026. And then finally, the closest, which kind of feels right, I guess, by 0.005 of a second on average over 30 qualifying sessions, using their representative times where possible. Norris ahead of Piastri, but it's basically a dead heat between the two McLaren guys, which is kind of crazy. So, well done to them. Well done to McLaren for having two drivers that are so close and managing to win the driver's title. Only by 2 points, but they still managed to get it done, and they won the Constructors. So it's all worked out in the end. As close as it was to disaster for McLaren, it's all worked out in the end. Excellent. So, the race itself, of course, panned out with Max winning fairly comfortably in the end, ahead of Oscar, ahead of Lando, and Charles gave a little bit of a fright, didn't he? But he fell away towards the end, finished about 8 seconds down the road from Norris, so didn't really have the pace on that final stint to give Lando any issues. George Russell P5, Fernando Alonso, huge race from him, P6, Esteban Ocon P7 as well. He felt like he was close to Fernando for a lot of the race. Hamilton, great recovery to P8. Hülkenberg, huge recovery from P18 to P9. Madness, well done Nico. And Lance Stroll, P10 in the end, felt like he could have got a bit more. He thought P8 was on, so could have gone a bit differently for Lance. Very good from Aston Martin all in all. Bortoleto went backwards, whereas Nico went forward, so P11 for him. Behrman copped a penalty for his defence moving twice, basically. Kind of like what Yuki got dinged for, which we will talk about, against Lance. So Ollie lost a few places there, I think. I'm assuming he got a penalty point in his licence, chat. Can anyone confirm? Because we know Ollie's pretty close to the sun when it comes to penalty points. So that's a little bit concerning as a Behrman enjoyer, as I am. And then Sainz P13. Williams, not a good race for them at all. Tsunoda P14. Of course, they left Yuki out on the hard tyre to try and use him as they did in 2021 with Perez to help out and to slow down Lando a bit. Didn't work in the end. Actually went against him where he got his 5-second penalty for moving, not under braking, just erratic driving, moving twice, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Antonelli, P15, just slow from Antonelli. He just wasn't at it. Sorry, I've got a really itchy nose all of a sudden. He wasn't at it. He said post-race he just felt really slow, which is a bit of a shame. Bit of a difficult way to end the season. Russell wasn't particularly quick either himself, so but obviously P15 and P5, still a big gap between them. Albon, P16, said he could have gone long, could have gone short, ended up going in the middle, and he just got stuck in traffic. Then he got a 5-second ding for speeding in the pit lane. So a bit of a howler weekend for Alex, all things considered. Hadjar P17, Lawson P18, the Racing Bulls were slow, but still not as slow as the Alpines, Gasly and Colapinto in 19 and 20. Excellent. So that is the race results covered. Let me just dip into the old super chats. Thank you, Ragav. Carlos's message was beautiful. Took me back to 19. I'm guessing you're saying about him and Lando, the vibes when they were teammates, because Carlos was clearly very chuffed for Lando at the end of the race, and it was very nice to see all of the drivers actually and be very complimentary and that towards Lando. You know, Lando gets a lot of unnecessary hate. He gets way too much stick, disproportionate amount of stick. You know, constructive criticism of driver performances is fair across the board, but some people obviously take it way too far. And the amount of stick, like, I'm glad Lando's come off socials because that couldn't have done him any good. But seeing all the other drivers, his compatriots, that's not the right word, is it? His peers, should I say? They're not all British. All of his peers congratulate him the way they did, I think speaks volumes, right? Thank you, MV, for the super chat. I was pretty damn angry in the end, but it is what it is at this point. Now we go to battle next year with a Ford Pinto in the RB22. Simply lovely. No, believe. You need to believe, right? You need to believe. And there are some very, very good people with good pedigree at Red Bull Powertrains, Ford Red Bull Powertrains, who, you know, plenty of ex-Mercedes, ex-Honda, like, there are some very, very good people there. So it is an uphill battle starting from scratch, don't get me wrong, but I think it's too early to write off the Red Bull engine project just yet, okay? I think there is reason to be confident. It's just impossible to know, isn't it, relatively speaking? And thank you, Evenfleur, for the massive super chat. Very, very appreciated. Thank you very much. Apparently, a 0.2% viewer, but never super chatted before. Criminal. Cheers for a year of amazing content. Get yourself something nice for Christmas. From Evan, a happy Lando fan. Thank you, Evan, man. Appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, you got to be chuffed, man. Because the thing is, to whoever won it, it's a vibe because it's not come easy this year, and it's been up and down. And Lando, you know, throughout so much of the season was getting so close, and these mistakes were creeping in, and you felt like it's getting away from him. And then he finds a bit of form, but then the car breaks down in Zandvoort, and then you're like, oh, what's going on? You know, I think that journey to it as well, and whether it would have been the same if Max had won, because he had his obviously terrible middle season stint, and it would have been the same if Oscar had won, because he had his terrible end of season stint. If he'd recovered and won it, that would have been a vibe for Oscar fans, because you'd have felt like it's, well, yeah, very much coming into this race, he was the rank outsider. So yeah, it's the journey, not the destination. You know, it's one of them, isn't it? But yeah, thank you, Evan. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much. And thank you, Issa, as well. 2025 felt like 2010 in terms of passing. The race that led the FIA to introduce DRS in the first place, as DRS waves us goodbye. And anyone in the chat know who the last person to use DRS was? We know Jenson Button was the first. Has anyone got... I know this. For once, I actually know something. That oh yeah, a few of you got it. New York got it. OK Pie got it. True Kime got it. Tyler. But basically, you've all got it. You all know it. God, I thought it was a bit of like niche information. It was Kimi Antonelli. So well done, Kimi, for that. Thank you, Commander. Should Charles have stuck to one stop to beat Lando? He wouldn't. I don't think he would have had the pace. You look at how Charles fell off relative to Lando towards the end of the race, with a new set of tyres as well. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't have... I'm very confident that Charles, there's nothing you could have done to beat Lando today. Whether he'd have done a one-stop, I think that was asking too much of him to manage the tyres on that, you know, troublesome Ferrari. Let's say that. And thank you, some say Itsu. I think that's your name, for the super chat as well. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Very kind of you all. Much appreciated. Right. Let's get back into the... let's get the correct graphic on screen. So that's the race results. Boom. Lovely jubbly. Driver standings. As you can see, Lando Norris in gold is the 2025 F1 World Champion on 423 points. 2 points ahead of Max Verstappen on 421 and 13 points ahead of Oscar Piastri on 410. Also, other important points to mention. So the top 10, kind of interesting. We know Hadjar spoke about how he really wanted to get top 10 this season. Unfortunately, he's dropped to P12. Joint on points with Hülkenberg, but Nico's got a better... Well, they've both got podiums, haven't they? But Nico must have a better second best finishing result, I guess, because this is the order online. So I've just taken it from that. But Alonso, with his clutch performance, is 56 points, which puts him 5 points ahead of Hülkenberg and Hadjar and gets 10th place, which well-deserved for Fernando. I think he's been very strong this season. It's been hard for him to showcase that because the car's been so capricious. But well done, Fernando, for top 10. And Colapinto didn't get a point, which is a shame. But, I mean, the Alpine's absolutely nowhere. So, fair enough. Game's a game. But, yeah, Lando winning by 2 points. 2 points. Said this. The revisionism, it's already crazy, but it's only going to carry on. And I think this revisionism is going to happen, like, kind of forever. However, what I will just remind everyone of the famous statement, if my mum had balls, she'd be my dad. And who said that? The guy in P2, Max Verstappen. So, before we start going if, buts and maybes, let's just heed Max's words, okay? Because 2 points is kind of crazy. But you look back to all of these incidents, and I've said this before, you know, if you change what happened in Spain, if you change what happened in Zandvoort to Lando's engine, if you change what happened to Silverstone, Oscar getting that penalty, if you change Monza team orders, but the butterfly effect would result in a completely different championship now anyway, either in their favour or against their favour. So, you know, it's not dwell on these things. It's interesting to speculate and talk about, I suppose, and we saw Max clap back pretty harshly on a journo from The Guardian who was asking him about Spain after the race, and he did not have any time for it. And fair play, because he's already addressed, you know, what happened in Spain. He shouldn't have done it. He regrets it, but it is what it is. And yeah, I mean, 2 points is a tough way to lose it. But I've got to say as well, the way Max kind of handled it, the way he was towards Lando, the way he's addressed it afterwards as well. He's been very consistent. He's been very calm for a reason, because he's actually been very calm, and he was very gracious. And I do actually, I genuinely think Max has, well, didn't he say, wasn't there a quote from Max? I didn't actually see the exact quote from him, but it was something like about haters or whatever. It was basically like, yeah, I need more haters because I've turned most of them into fans. But like, I'm not being funny. Like, I don't know about you, but there's so many more people when I speak to about F1, they're actually, I actually kind of like Max now. Like, and they didn't like, and bear in mind, I'm British, right? So in the UK, there was a heavy bias against Verstappen in 2021. And I think that's stuck in a lot of people's minds, more casual fans, which I don't expect any different, right? That's just the way that season panned out. Max was the bad guy, Lewis was the good guy. That's the media narrative from that 2021 season. And it was the opposite if you're in the Netherlands. That's the way it's going to be, right? Of course it is. But yeah, I do think he's made a lot of fans this year. I do think he's made a hell of a lot of fans. And as you say, Alternate 45, you just have to respect it at some point. You don't have to like him, you know. Schumacher had haters, Vettel had haters, Hamilton had haters. But you should respect when they're demonstrating that peak class, that top quality. You know, you should at least respect it. But yeah, well done, Lando. Well done, Lando. By 2 points, he's won it. 2 points is barbaric, but it's still kind of cool. So, teams. No changes in position in the Constructors. However, Aston almost caught Racing Bulls, only 3 points behind in the end. Terrible weekend for Racing Bulls to end the season with, but they just about did enough over the course of the other 23 rounds to secure P6 with 92 points, ahead of Aston Martin on 89, ahead of Haas on 79. It makes me a little bit more comfortable with the idea of Haas not beating Aston Martin, because I did want Haas to get P7 because they are the small minnows and Aston are kind of the opposite. They represent very much the opposite. But the fact that it was 10 points between them and Alonso and Stroll managed points in the last Grand Prix, it makes that a bit easier to accept. If they had lost out by like a point or two, that would have been more gutting. You know what I mean? Where's Green Haas? Green Haas is reserved for the for the past. Okay, I will not make a single extra graphical error in a CHINWAG in 2025. I can guarantee you that. See what I did there? Dear. But yes, McLaren comfortably win the Constructors on 833 points, ahead of Mercedes 469, Red Bull 451, Scuderia Ferrari don't even break 400 points. Tough. 398. Williams 37. Racing Bulls 92. Aston 89. 79. Sauber 70. We'll talk about Sauber in a bit. Give them a bit more love because it's the end of an era for Sauber. And then finally Alpine 22 points at the back. Okay. Before we get into bangers and clangers, also this weekend was the finale in Formula 2. We obviously saw Leonardo Fornaroli crowned champion last weekend. However, Joshua Dirksen took the dub in the F2 feature race, which was a little bit chaotic. Don't know what Alex Dunn was trying with the moves that he did. Just stuck a nose in and spun someone out. I can't remember who he spun out, to be honest, but that caused on a bit of a knock-on effect, chain reaction. And Lindblad maybe could have been on for a good result, ended up P9 in the end, ahead of Stanek and Mini. Well done Joshua Dirksen for winning the finale in Abu Dhabi. To be honest, I didn't watch it, I just watched the highlights, but there you go. Wanted to give that a little bit of a shout out as well. Lovely jubbly. Right, let's go back to the old Super Dupers. Thank you, Ed. Or should I say Edward, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you, Tom McDermott, as well, for the super chat. Was genuinely emotional seeing Lando cross the line, stuck to the keyboard warriors, spreading hate towards him in the best way. And that's what I mean. Like, the reason that many of us, I'll tell you about the reason all of us love this sport is the human element, the human story. And I say that because there's a reason none of us watch autonomous racing like that A2RL. I mean, maybe some of you do, but come on. When there's no one in the car and they're just robots driving around, even Robot Wars, okay? I'm sure, what was it, BattleBots? Is that what you have in the US? But classic Robot Wars, you know what I mean? Yeah, the robots have personality, but also it's people who are operating them, right? Now, okay, I digress. What I'm saying is, it's the human being, it's the story, it's that's what draws us in. And I think F1 is such a good sport for that, to really build that connection, as well as the fact that there is that inherent danger attached to this sport that isn't attached to most others. So, yeah, I think that, mate, yeah, I mean, seeing Lando well up, yeah, I was definitely close. I was definitely on the front. I am a bit of a wet wipe when it comes to, I'll cry at a movie, Toy Story, which one, 3? I think 3's the one that's really when they're in the furnace. Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me. And then they go back and Andy's dropping the toys off at the, no. No, but like, seriously, yeah, it was good vibes. And the thing is, people will discuss to the sun, people will defend Lando, people will attack Lando, people will be fair, people will be unfair. But at the end of the day, Lando got it done. He got it won. He's won his first championship. First time winner is always special and interesting and amazing to see. When Lewis won his first in 2008, when Max won his first in 2021, when Seb won his first in 2010, when Nico won in 2016, when Fernando got it done in 2005, his first time. Like, there is something really special about seeing a first-time winner, and we get so much more access to these drivers. There's so much more camera angles, the radios, all of that, and Lando is a driver who gives him all. Him all? Gives him all. That's not really good English language, is it, Tom? Gives himself out there, puts himself out there, wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think that enables people to connect with him, and hence is why he's got such a big fan base. And unfortunately, I think part of the anti-Lando brigade is because he's so popular. People kind of push against that in the same way that people get bored with domination, and hence why I think a lot of people switched off to the idea of Max in 2024. But now that he's become the underdog, certainly this season, a lot more people switch back onto him because he wasn't that domineering figure over the sport again. And it's just very human to see Lando. And can you even imagine the pressure? Like, I was so nervous before the start of this race. Like, I was, I can't demonstrate it, right? I was like, I was like an owl on the sofa, just like bobbing up and down, just like, like when Oscar did the move on Lando, it was like, oh, Oscar, ah, you know what I mean? It's one of them. Just, you're all over the gaff. Like, it was just bleh. It was just so intense. I mean, I'm always like that with the start of races anyway. Like, I am. When I used to do Last Lap, which is like the race watch-alongs, like, obviously you're in the studio, you're trying to present a live stream as the race is happening. I do kind of like the fact that I'm not doing that anymore, because I can just be like, ah, like, what's going on? I could just really get into it and just love it, It's, which I guess the best illustrated example of that was my Abu Dhabi 2021 race full stream, where I just kind of forgot I was streaming and just was going crazy. But that was what it was. Anyway, I've got massively sidetracked there, but thank you, Tom, for the super chat. Thank you, Reacted, as well, for the super chat. Very kind of you. Much appreciated. Loved your content this year. It's been awesome. I've also been training for a marathon, and these podcasts have kept me so entertained while training for the past few months. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck to you. Reacted, thank you very much for the support. Good luck with the marathon as well. I did one in many a time ago, and it broke me. So, I mean, I wasn't prepared for the 29-degree Chicago blue skies that just burnt my pasty English skin. So, I hope you have a better time than I did, because I definitely fell off towards the end. It's tough, but it's very, very rewarding. And marathon's a great way to like see a new place. That's why I was so glad I did it in Chicago, because it was like a place I'd never been to before, and you proper take in all the different like districts and areas and that. It was sick. So you'll enjoy it, Reactors. You'll enjoy it. Just make sure you get your carbs in the night before. Get the fluids going. Don't cramp up. I cramped up on the day, and I hadn't cramped up at all in training. So just make sure you don't cramp. Even if you have to bring your own energy drinks, because you Americans, you're Gatorade. Gatorade's grim. Lucozade is so clear of Gatorade. It's not even a debate. It's clearly not a debate. And I wish I brought my own Lucozade with me, because they had Gatorade that were giving it out, and I was just like, even though I'm so thirsty, I feel like I'm drinking like something I don't want to describe on the internet. But thank you, Reacted, for the super chat. Good luck with your marathon. Thank you, Edward, again for the super chat. Will the new regs mean a new dominating team? Well, what we should have, because let's assume that the engines that are most likely to be good are Mercedes, and they have 4 teams, including Mercedes, because they have Alpine have added to the stable. Obviously, Williams, McLaren, and Mercedes. And I guess Ferrari, in terms of they've got the infrastructure there, they've been making engines for years, and obviously they supply themselves and Haas, and now Cadillac. Cadillac, they're going to be low for obvious reasons. Haas, as much as Toyota are stepping up now, it's going to be the TGR Haas F1 team next year, isn't it? Very exciting. Toyota upping their relationship with that team. Replacing MoneyGram as a title sponsor is a big step, and Toyota, I don't know what I think of that GRGT Toyota. It kind of looks cool. The proportions look very cool, but I prefer the new Hyundais. That Hyundai wagon that they touted recently, they showed off, looks unreal. Hopefully Hyundai join F1 soon. That would be lovely to see. They are joining WEC, of course. But yes, I think if it is Mercedes, the dominant power unit, let's hope that Mercedes, McLaren, Williams, and even Alpine, because Alpine have always made good chassis. Engine's been their main Achilles heel. That they can all do something good and make it interesting. If we've got a multi-team, championship, people aren't going to care if they're all running the same engine, They're just not. And thank you, Mr. Hoppy, for the super chat as well. I said after Zandvoort that Lando's championship was over. You told me not to give up. Thank you. You're welcome. No, at no point did I think that I felt that it was going to take a lot from Lando, but almost him being behind. And he's said this since, hasn't he? He said this after the Grand Prix today, that he did, make some changes and bring some people in behind the scenes to really help him. And getting off socials and getting out of the noise and just focusing on the talent he clearly has and letting that shine and not getting too caught up in all the other stuff that comes with this incredible job that these guys have. So, yeah, I think it's worked out in the end, doesn't it? By 2 points, but 2 points is enough. Doesn't matter how much you win by, a win is a win. But yeah, thank you for your super chats. Appreciate it. Very much appreciated. Okay, so bangers and clangers time. Do we have to look at mine? Okay. Did you see it? Okay. Oscar race win, no. Yuki banger, no. Esteban clanger, no. Alpine banger, bruv. My God. Oh, Jesus Christ. I feel like Charles Leclerc. I feel like listen to Charles' post-race interview with F1, and he's like, I feel so sad. Oh, this is a Lomo. This is a hell of a Lomo to end the season. I'll tell you what, that's appalling. Clanger Ferrari didn't even clang. Double points. Lewis recovered. Charles was challenging P3. The one easy one, I thought, embarrassing. Just delete the channel. Delete the channel. I've gone really red suddenly. I have. I'm matching the red X's on screen. That's my body is just naturally adjusting to the L. Esteban Clanger, bro. I did say on Wednesday I was giving Esteban Clanger because I wanted to reverse jinx. Go back. The receipts are there. I did say I wanted to reverse jinx it, and you're welcome, Esteban. And I'll take the L if not for that. Okay, if not for that. You did better because you basically just backed Max, which fair enough. Max race winner, yes, well done. Banger drive, Max, yes, of course. Banger team Red Bull. As much as Yuki didn't have a great race in the end, he got to Q3 with an old floor. He had the old floor for the race as well, so I'll give him a bit of benefit of doubt with that. And of course, Max just did what he does, which is win from the front when he has the machinery to do so. So well done you. Yeah, really happy for you. Yeah. Honestly. Right, okay. Bangers and clangers then for the actual Grand Prix, rather than stupid predictions that don't mean anything. Thanks, Dad. Cheers, Burkosaurus. I'm glad I give Dad energy. Right, come on then. Let's talk about it, shall we? Let's get on to bangers and clangers for the 2025 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And I think he absolutely deserves the votes, and I'm giving it to Max Verstappen because put it on pole, 2 laps good enough for pole position, led from the front, made the one-stop work, did all he could do. What more? It was a faultless weekend for Max at the end of the year. He held up his end of the bargain. He maxed his opportunity. You could say maybe he could have pitted to try and hold up the pack, but I think with the dirty air we were dealing with, it was... I don't think Charles was ever getting past Lando Norris in that final stint, even if Max had tried to back up the pack. I also think that if he had, it would have almost ended up the same, but then we would have been saying, well, Max should have stayed out because then something else might have happened, and that's just silly. So Max Verstappen, banger driver, easy dub. But what about you? 848 of you voted. Thank you very much for voting. Again, make sure you subscribe, interact, comment, carry a pigeon. However you want to get involved with Tommos Race CHINWAG. You are more likely to see the polls when I post them on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram as well, at Tommo McCluskey, which I often do. I did this one, which is kind of a rarity, but I post other stuff on Instagram. So get involved. And then you can be involved in these polls next year, which we will be doing these again next year. I'll be making some subtle changes, subtle improvements, maybe any suggestions, stuff you think could be improved with the CHINWAGs next year. Or even if you don't have your own suggestion, if you see a suggestion you like, then give that a like so I know that you like it. You know what I mean? So, bangers and clangers, your banger driver is Max Verstappen. 34% of the vote. 27% of the vote, Lando Norris, which obviously did win the championship as much as he lost position. Huge amount of pressure. So, I get why he got a big percentage of the votes. 19% Charles Leclerc, which I rate because I think he really did maximise a pretty difficult car. Does banger team include the driver? No, Tenny. I try and, when I'm looking at banger team and clanger team, I try and focus on what the team delivered. So the car itself, pit stop, strategy, all that. Driver, I try and focus on what the driver brought to the table, you know. And then 6% Lewis Hamilton, which was a fantastic recovery from Lewis, granted, as much as it was a difficult quali. He shouldn't really been in there in the first place. He recovered to P8, so fair play. 6% of the vote for Lewis Hamilton. Boom. Clanger driver. I've gone Alex. Bad qualifying. It was fine margins, but he was still a couple of tenths, I want to say, off of Sainz. Where's my graph? Yeah, 0.229 off of Sainz was Albon in qualifying and sped in the pit lane. It's been a poor end to the season, and, well, as you will see shortly, I haven't actually given Alex a single clanger this season, which, okay, I'm probably a bit biased. But also, he's been very good for most of the year. Well, first half of the year, and it's been wobbly as of late. So, I think it's fair. I think it's fair to give it to Alex for clanger. Just a poor weekend all round for him. And you've given it to Yuki. 37% of the votes, 15% Albon, 14% Antonelli, 7% Russell. Yeah, I mean, P14 in the end for Yuki. On paper, it's you know, his teammates dominated the race and won. He's qualified P10 and finished P14. So, yeah, I get it. And then, of course, there's the 5-second penalty in the slightly contentious overtake for Lando, which we will talk about shortly. Don't you worry. Right. Banger Aston Martin, I've gone. Because Fernando was quick. Lance, great recovery drive. P10 could have got more in the end. Did Lance. So I think Aston actually cooked this weekend. Almost caught racing balls, should I say. So well done Aston, because they've been super up and down this year. Super up and down. So well done Aston Martin for banger driver, banger team. What am I talking about? Right. Banger team Aston Martin for you. Banger team. McLaren. 53% of the vote, which, granted, yeah. 2, 3, fair enough. Makes sense. 20% Aston Martin. 11% Haas. 8% Red Bull Racing. Bosh. Lovely jubbly. And then finally, Clanger team. I've gone Racing Bulls. Just almost bottled P6 with a horrific performance. Like, the race pace was just nowhere. which is really strange because they've looked pretty consistent this year, Racing Bulls. And relative to where they have been, they had an absolute clanger. Absolutely. And you've gone Alpine, which, I mean, fair enough, they were objectively the slowest team. So, can't really complain about that, can I? Can't really complain about that. 57% of you went for Alpine. For Clanger team, 17% Racing Bulls, 10% Williams, and 7% Mercedes. There you go. So, what does that mean then? Our final totals of the season for bangers and clangers. Well, mine, banger driver, the winner is Max Verstappen with 4 votes for banger driver. Joint P2 is Norris, Antonelli and Piastri with 3 banger drivers each. And then joint P3 is Hadjar and Sainz with 2 banger driver votes each from me. So well done to all of those drivers. Clanger driver, Liam Lawson wins that one for me with 4 votes. Then joint second is Antonelli, Tsunoda, Piastri and Bortoletto with 3 banger drivers apiece each. And then all on his own in P3, twice Lewis has 1 banger driver. Clanger driver, sorry. This is Clanger. Banger team, Mercedes get the most. 5 over the course of the year from me. Then joint second is Haas and Red Bull with 4. And joint third is Sauber and Aston Martin with 3 apiece. Very interesting. So what team didn't get a single banger team vote from me? Red Bull's there. Mercedes is there because they win. Racing Bulls is there. Williams is there. Aston Martin's there. Alpine, obviously Alpine. And Ferrari, yeah. I should have just known that. I didn't even need to go through them, did I? I should have just known that Alpine and Ferrari wouldn't have a single banger team vote all season. Alpine, you idiot. I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's a valid reason to call me an idiot. That's very valid. And then finally, Clanger team, joint winners, Alpine and Williams with 4 apiece. Then Ferrari in second with 3. And then Haas, Mercedes, Red Bull, Aston, McLaren and Racing Bulls all with 2 Clanger team votes apiece. Bosh. So those are my votes. And then yours, I mean, who's more accurate, right? Come on. Banger driver, 6 times you gave it to Max. 6. So well done for Max. So he's not won the championship, but he's won this. So I'm sure that will make him very happy. Second place, Antonelli, 3 times. He's won banger driver. And then in joint third, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Bortoletto, Hadjar and Sainz. 5 drivers with 2 votes apiece. Your banger driver. Clanger driver, Lawson wins for you as well with 4. Then joint P2 is Tsunoda, Piastri, both with 3. And then joint P3 is Antonelli, Hamilton with 2. Banger team, Mercedes win for you as well with 6 times. They've won it. Followed by McLaren, P2 with 5. And Haas, P3 with 4. And then finally, Clanger team, joint winner, P1, joint winners, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine with 5 votes apiece. Then Racing Bulls in second with 3. And Williams in third with 2. Boom. There we go. Bangers and Clangers Championship done for the season. Congratulations to Max, Liam, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, and Williams for me. Joint winners in my Clanger team. For your victories. You don't get any prize money, but you just get respect or disrespect if you're a clanger. Yeah, congrats to Liam. the respect and disrespect. Okay, best of both worlds. Excellent. Love it. Love it. Oh yeah, quick reminder. Enjoying this podcast, please give it a good rating. 5 stars would be lovely. A comment, engage however you can. It helps get the CHINWAG out to the world. Sorry, I just wanted to take a water break. Right, should we go all teams, team by team, starting with Sauber in the last ever Grand Prix that they will be called Sauber. Because, yeah, end of an era. Audi, of course, take over the team fully next year in terms of the branding and all that. Peter Sauber was there, the man who started the team. And as much as they couldn't deliver any better than P9, Hulkenberg, good drive in the end. And yeah, I mean, it's been a plucky team that's held on, and hopefully Audi can deliver something. They, of course, will fully own the engine project, and Audi typically get success in motorsport. They get there eventually. So yes, well done, Peter Sauber. End of an era, great legacy. And yeah, I mean, I think they've got a very good driver partnership in Bortoleto and Hulkenberg. I really do. I rate Gabby incredibly highly, and I think Nico is just a very, very solid pair of hands. It's super difficult to know where they're going to be next year, right? Because no one else is running the Audi engine, and you know, Sauber aren't exactly a team who have been delivering performance, not since the Kubica days at BMW, right? So yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle. The livery should be cool, but other than that, I don't really know. And yeah, in the race, Hulkenberg made massive progress forward. Bortoleto struggled. He said he had a lot of bouncing in the car, which you wouldn't expect around Abu Dhabi because it's pretty flat there. So yeah, it's just a tale of two halves, really. And again, very equal teammates. I hope that they're able to move forward, but it's a relative game, this sport, and it's hard to make a massive case for Audi, at least in 26. Maybe if we're looking a few years down the line, you'd hope. And obviously getting Audi in was a big reason why we've got these new engine regulations, these strange engine regulations, and I hope it was worth it. I really do hope it was worth it. Oh, Sono's just got it. Can we start again? Of course, Sono. No, I'm not doing that joke again. Alpine. Oh dear, Alpine. Will they be called Alpine next year? I do wonder. I think this team is primed for a big branding exercise, Briatore, getting some deal with some big brand and chucking the name, kind of basically turning it into like a V-carb where it's got like 3 title sponsors in the name. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, obviously Renault can still own the team, but they could just like, you know, rebrand it. It's a shame because obviously Alpine are actually releasing cars now. Like, I occasionally see some of those Alpine Renault 5s, whatever it's called, and they look pretty cool, decent to me. I like the A110. It's okay, but I don't know. I just don't think that's I think Renault need to distance themselves entirely from F1 for a little bit, because actually they're making pretty cool cars. That new Twingo looks sick, but yeah, I have faith in the chassis. I have faith in David Sanchez, and they're going to have a Mercedes power unit. So I'm more optimistic for Alpine than I am for Sauber next year, for sure. You know, when I'm trying to do my predictions for next year, I'm almost certainly going to have Alpine ahead of Sauber. Things can change, of course, because I'll probably do them in Jan. So maybe 2026 Tomo will have a change of heart. But right now, I'm pretty confident that, you know, a Mercedes-powered Alpine is going to be better than an Audi-powered Audi. But we will see. And literally nothing to say. I mean, Gasly was literally laughing in his post-race when he was talking to Lawrence Barretto. He was just like, it just needs to end. You didn't see because we were just so slow. Yeah, not a good day in the office for Alpine, and Colapinto struggled as well, didn't he? Ferrari. Oh, it was like it was actually quite sad listening to, again, I would recommend listening to Charles Leclerc's post-race, and he was like, now the season's over, it's really like dawned on him just how bad this season's been. And again, it's so easy to forget that like 12 months ago, Ferrari almost won the Constructors in Abu Dhabi. They almost won the Constructors in Abu Dhabi. How many Grand Prix did Charles, how many podiums did he get? Hang on, I just want to check something here, right? So this year, Charles got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 podiums this year, right? No wins, 6 podiums. Last year, Charles got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need to go over. 10, 11, 12, 13 podiums, which include 1, 2, 3 wins. 13 podiums, 3 wins to 6 podiums, no wins. And Lewis didn't get a single podium this year. Pain. Pain. Absolute pain. Absolute le pain. Okay? He almost was Chuck de Klerk for this race, wasn't he? Because he was the only hope Max really had of winning the championship. Did a great job, given the car that's underneath him. But, man, yeah, Ferrari, they need to stick by Fred because they need consistency. And they need Elkan to not stick his nose in and just let them cook. Because it is the Fred era and it's new and it's going to have some bumps along the road. But I have ultimate faith in Fred. That could be wrong. I could come to regret that position, but I don't think anything's going to change for the better if they move things around now. So, yeah, a difficult year. It's a massive opportunity. And they've talked a lot about, offsetting resource for 26. And there's a lot of hope there, but, I mean, Ferrari's never short of hope. And look, again, with Lewis, I just think that this year was always going to be a difficult year. He's within 2 tenths on average of Charles. I think, yeah, I mean, if he'd been able to bring Bono over, that would have been clutch, but that's not going to be the case. Lewis has got a lot of things he wants changing. He's said he's going to basically go fully AFK over winter. No phone, no nothing, just leave him alone. And fair play, reset, but then he will be right, 26 is the opportunity, really. Because also, the fact that Behrman's done so well as of late and clearly is showing promise and had a very similar end to his season as Charles did in his 2018 season at Sauber. I think that adds a little bit more pressure to Lewis as well, that he needs to deliver, and 26 is really the opportunity. Because do I see him still being at Ferrari in 27? Probably not. Certainly not based on the way this season's ended anyway. And if that Ferrari car's nowhere, look, I mean, you could say, well, maybe Lewis should have stayed if Mercedes is the quickest car next year and blah, blah, blah. But George seemed to have the advantage over Lewis in Mercedes anyway. So I think I'll never begrudge Lewis for taking the punt on Ferrari. It's a punt that Alonso and Vettel took at way earlier points in their careers and didn't make work. So it was always going to be a bit of a Hail Mary YOLO move for Lewis, and so far it's not playing out, but time will tell. Haas, I mean, all in all, I think they've got to be pretty satisfied. When I went to Haas earlier in the year, they were saying that the plan was to offset, and they decided to put a bit more effort and a bit more resource into improving this car because they sensed an opportunity in the Constructors. They've not finished as high as they'd have liked, but they've also not finished as low as they could have. So they finished ahead of Sauber, behind Aston Martin, behind Racing Bulls. All in all, I think they can be pretty satisfied with where they're at. They've had good momentum over the second part of the year. Again, Toyota stepping up their technical support of the team. I think Esteban, I'm glad he's had a good last race to the year, because I was really worried, and that should give him some good momentum to kick on next year and think to himself, right, I'm not cooked, I'm actually decent. Ollie's obviously been fantastic on track, and 8-7 has been, quite the cultural piece that he's put out into the world. So, yeah, I mean, all in all, I think Okamatsu's done a pretty fantastic job. He's made that team feel a lot more serious, to be honest, than it did in the Günther Steiner era. And that seriousness, plus I'm sure, Komatsu has helped broker this Toyota deal as well. Being Japanese himself, I'm sure that's helped in terms of the communication, in terms of understanding the cultural nuances that go on there, and getting that deal across the line. So yeah, I just feel like Haas are in a really positive place. I think they're a really positive place, actually. Still running Ferrari power units. Toyota, maybe the next set of engine regs they might think to get involved, Probably not for the time being. They're quite happy to just kind of keep the team at arm's length, but still increase their involvement. It's good to see. It is good to see. Very good. And yes, like I said earlier, Danny, good mention, MoneyGram out as a title sponsor because Toyota Gazoo Racing will be taking over as a title sponsor. And that merch is going to be fire. Like, it's going to be sick. I can't wait to see the Haas merch. Haas Toyota merch for next year is going to be sacre bleu. Love it. Racing Bulls, again, difficult end to the year. And a shame because I think Hadjar's driven so well over the course of the year. Lawson's really kind of stepped up as well after a difficult start to the year. Very, very difficult. Like, massive hit to his confidence that would have been getting dropped by Red Bull after 2 races. And, you know, it's going to be him and Lindblad next year. Hadjar's obviously taking the step up. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll be interested to see where that team is next year because obviously they're using Lawson as a reference for Lindblad in many ways, but also this will be Liam's first full kind of proper clean season where he's got a pre-season, you know, can really get to know the car and get settled in with his side of the garage and then, you know, have a full season in 2026, hopefully for him. So, because obviously his F1 career has been super, like, over the place, isn't it? It's been, he jumped in for Ricciardo. He, you know, did a really good job, right? Really impressed in Zandvoort when he took that seat. And then just, yeah, it felt like Red Bull took a punt on him for a reason. And obviously it didn't pay off for him, but actually it's kind of worked out for Liam in the end because if they'd have kept with Liam and kept Yuki in the second team, we'd probably be seeing Liam out of a seat, I reckon. Like, that's probably how that would have gone, right? So it's worked out in the end, and obviously Lindblad is someone they've got a lot of belief in. He's shown big results in junior formulas at a very young age, so, and he seems to have his head screwed on. So, and we've already seen a little teaser of what the Racing Bulls content, social content, is going to be for next year. If you've not seen it, it's when he's in Hadjar's room. And Hadjar's like, "You're not in here yet, mate. Skedaddle. Get out of here, son." Obviously, Hadjar isn't Cockney, so he wouldn't say it like that. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. But yeah, Racing Bulls, P6 in the end. Got to be happy with that. Good little bit of prize money for the team. Bosh, happy days. Williams, again. Williams and Racing Bulls. Like, 5th and 6th quickest constructors, but both were nowhere in Abu Dhabi. Absolutely nowhere. But I think Williams are onto such a good thing. I really hope they tighten up the operational problems as of late. This weekend, the team didn't really seem to make too many mistakes. They just delivered a slow car. But again, Williams haven't really upgraded this car throughout the entire season, which makes their P5 even more clutch. So, you know, as much as Science wasn't delivering the results at the start of the year, Albon was. Obviously, there's a bit of recency bias, but at the same time, you know, why have Albon's results fallen away? I would, as an Albon fan, I would like to know because he has not been very impressive as of late, and it's a bit concerning, I'll be honest, to see. Whereas Science has definitely absolutely stepped up, as I expected he would do, but I didn't expect Albon's results to also fall off a cliff at the same time, which is a bit worrying for me personally as an Albon fan. But yes, Williams, Mercedes engine, James Vowles is absolutely cooking with this team. They've got a sick new Williams logo for next year, still Atlassian Williams, but the Williams logo is way better now. It's a bit of a ode back to their past, and it just looks so much nicer. So, yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful. Will they be title protagonists in 26? I mean, that'd be great. But, I mean, they should have the engine to do it. It's just whether the rest of the facilities have caught up in time, because Drulton have been investing for a while. But are they there yet? Have they got the team to that operational facility personnel level in time for this new 26 regulation period? That's what we don't know. But I would love it. I would love it. I would love it so much if Williams were up there next year. Oh my goodness, I would love it. I would love it. Obviously, I would love it because I'm biased. Right. McLaren. Okay. We can talk a little bit more about the race then, I guess, with this one, because I want to ask you a question in a poll to all you lovely 1,025 of you here on YouTube Live. How should I word this? So, should Lando have gotten a penalty for passing Tsunoda Yuki off track? Should Lando have gotten a penalty? It can just be a yes or no question. He didn't get a penalty, and I've got the FI document here. Actually, I can read. Driver of car 4 overtook car 22 off track. However, this occurred because the driver of car 22 made multiple moves defending his position against car 1, which he objectively did. I don't think anyone's doubting that Yuki did make multiple moves, and he did swerve. Had car 22 not made those moves, car 4 would have overtaken it without going off track, but moved off track to avoid contact with car 22. Further, the driving standards guidelines provide that if a car is forced off, which was effectively what occurred here, it is not considered to have exceeded track limits. Whilst technically the overtake took place off track, we determine in view of the above and take no further action. So that is the official line from the stewards regarding this one. And 82% of you think no, 18% of you say yes, 19% of you. So you're basically split 4-1 on this. Which, I mean, look, Yuki's clearly swerving. It's because people have tried to compare this to Austin, but this is always the difficulty with comparing incidents because they're not like for like incidents. You know, this is on a straight. This is going in a straight line. This is not in a braking zone. This is quite well ahead of the braking zone. Versus in Austin, that's on the exit of a corner when obviously it's Max and Lando being pushed wide and then coming back on. This is the one in 2024. So yeah, I think it's one of those that's just a pretty common sense one. And like, if all the drivers were running plain liveries and we didn't know who the drivers were, it would just be very obvious that, you know, the car in front is doing too much, and just Yuki, yeah, he didn't. He needed to massively defend the inside, which he didn't do well enough. He gave Lando enough of a, you know, enough space out there, and then just, you know, the thing is, I've seen people say, yeah, but Lando had room, like he could have stayed on track. But you got to remember, this is at like one of the highest speed parts of the circuit. And Lando's like, I'm not being funny, he's like leading the championship. And you've got a Red Bull right there. Like, again, I just think it's common sense that Lando doesn't get penalised for that. And any car doesn't get penalised when the car in front of them is clearly swerving and you're on a straight. Like, it's just common sense, really. And like, what I would say is that swerving doesn't always get penalised, because, not to bring up 2021, but on that last lap, Max was swerving quite a bit, wasn't he? Down that, after he got past Lewis, and then down that straight, Max was changing directions. But rules in 21 are not exactly the same as the rules now. I will say that. So yeah, I think it's fine. Like, it's fine. Like, again, you can try and be black and white with these rules. I just think a bit of common sense in this one. Like, obviously, without Yuki swerving, Lando would just drive past him. It's on a straight. It's not in a braking zone. So, you know, I think it's fine. You will always find incidents in the past that, you know, are different, and then you'd be like, well, that's hypocritical because this happened, blah, blah, blah. I'll just call it as I see it. Like, for me, no penalty was completely fair, and Yuki getting a 5-second should have done. He should have done more. Has anyone seen Checo's retweet, by the way? Go, if you haven't, go and see what Checo retweeted on Twitter, because I won't call it X. It's kind of funny. Go check it out yourself. It's funny. But yeah, so I mean, again, 81% of you think no penalty, and I agree. Thank you, Pascal, by the way, for the super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sauber, for a good season, and thank you for a journey that started in Kyle Army in 1993 in F1. The memories will stay with me forever. Love that, Pascal, and hopefully you can find a home with Audi, and they will become your new team, and you can support them as well. Still, obviously, based out of Hinwil, and a much more European-based team. I know they're opening a facility in Silverstone, but that's cool. That's good to see. So, yeah, end of an era, Sauber. End of an era. Mercedes were just not at it. Not at the races, were they, this time round? Which you felt like George was going to be the best chance for something crazy to happen up front, outside of the top three. And turns out it was Charles in the end. And even Charles couldn't actually manifest much of a thing. Oh yeah, Nuno, you just said no love for Renault PU. You're right. I didn't even mention when I was talking about Alpine that the last time we've seen an Alpine PU. Anyway, Mercedes, yeah, just Kimi, just a bad day, bad weekend for Kimi. All in all, actually, not much positive to take away for Kimi Antonelli at all. And George, bad start to the race, wasn't really able to do much else other than that. If he'd have stayed ahead of Charles, maybe he'd have finished ahead of Charles, and maybe he could have been a factor in that early stint. Probably not. But all in all, I think George is in a really good place. He's at the team that's expected to have the best engine next season, and it is their own engine. He also has a teammate that, as much as Kimi has had some very high peaks, George's consistency has been superb this year. So he will absolutely feel that if they can deliver a championship fighting car, George will absolutely be in that fight. George speaking afterwards, he was saying actually pretty grown-up sentiment he was making, that if this had been a few years ago, he'd probably been a bit more envious of Lando. But actually, right now, he just feels very chuffed for him. But also, I think part of that is because George knows that, come prediction time, when I'm doing my 2026 predictions, there's going to be a very good argument for putting George Russell right at the top. So he must know that he's in a pretty good place, and his time will come, because he's absolutely got the minerals, has George Russell, to win a world title. I 100% believe he's got the minerals. For me, he's the third best driver in F1 right now, and we'll see if he gets the chance to prove it next year. We will see. Boom. Aston Martin, again, fantastic day in the office for them. Of course, they are leaving Mercedes power units, joining with Honda as a essentially kind of factory team deal for next year. And the year's ended pretty well, actually. Fernando has been cooking these last few races. Let me just remind myself of his results as of late, because I swear they've been actually pretty good. And it's just showing that even at 44, Fernando, this guy can still do it. He still has the levels, which is kind of bad. If anyone's not listened to Fernando's Beyond the Grid, sorry, not Fernando, Sebastian Vettel's Beyond the Grid recently, so good. I think probably my favourite ever Beyond the Grid episode, because he was super candid and really open. And Seb said himself, 2019, he struggled with Charles, and Charles being so positive about where it was relative, because he was so used to winning, essentially, Vettel. And then in 2020 as well, he was he felt like he lost his edge, and he was past his prime years, and he didn't have that same want and that same burning fire in his heart. And part of that, he's built a whole life for himself outside of F1. And it was would really recommend it. Definitely give that a listen. But yeah, Fernando, clearly, he's gone P6. He went 2 P7s in the Qatar Sprint and normal race, P11 in Vegas, P6 in the Sao Paulo Sprint, 10 in Austin, 7 in Singapore. Man, this guy's still got it. He still absolutely has it. And actually, Stroll's pretty good today. In the race, pretty good. Stroll's got that in him. And look, we can criticise Stroll all we like. And look, Stroll's not... Okay, the qualifying delta's over 3 tenths over the course of the year, which isn't great. Stroll can deliver a result. But if you want a comfortable 1-2, then Fernando, you let him be your guy. You let him, lead this team from the front. Stroll will do his thing as the second driver. And perhaps that is the better way for Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin to win a drivers' championship. Because that is, when teams talk about we want to win the championship, it is really the drivers that they want. Like, of course, from a team point of view, for everyone's bonuses and all that, constructors, but that's not the one that people remember. That is not the one that people remember. Stroll the tyre whisperer. There you go. Yeah, 29-1, exactly. 29-1 to Fernando Alonso in qualifying head-to-head over the course of the year. Not ideal, but also it puts Fernando firmly as number 1. But not as firmly as Max. But, I mean, we'll see next year with Hadjar, won't we? We will see next year with Hadjar what that gap is. I just hope and pray that Red Bull have made this decision with the confidence that this isn't going to cook Isaac. That's the main takeaway I'm bringing from this. But yeah, I mean, like, what an effort, like, for Max and for the team to recover from 104 points down 9 rounds ago to 2 points shy, and 2 points shy of the other car as well. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that it was so close in the end. Obviously, we've seen the pictures of Max post-race just being, like, super gracious in defeat. And again, he always, felt like this was an opportunity that presented itself not fully out of merit, but also about it being gifted in many ways by McLaren's mistakes, which is absolutely a fair point. And I think Max has gained a lot of fans by the way he's driven this year as the underdog, but also the way he's carried himself. Like, I think he's been, like, it's strange seeing someone so relaxed in this position, but that's just his mentality. That's his mindset, And yeah, we saw GP looked pretty crestfallen at the end. Like, I don't know the details, but I know that GP's had a tough year on a personal level, so I'm sure that absolutely plays into it. So yeah, I just think that it's been crazy. Obviously, with all the upheaval with Christian leaving and Laurent coming in, instability is always a tricky one. You change a team principle, and someone's so ingrained to that team, that the man who built that team, right? It's always a risk, but I think it's a calculated risk that Red Bull clearly took some serious time to consider and felt like Laurent was the right guy. And certainly, so far, so good. I mean, obviously, I've been able to visit Red Bull a number of times, doing talking ball and getting to know some of the people at the team, and it feels like it's in a pretty positive place. Obviously, I don't know about the other team, so I can't use them as a reference. But I feel like, the energy, the mood is pretty good. And time will tell whether Red Bull, own engine with Ford, of course, partnering up with Ford, is going to lead to results that can keep Max. I guess that's the thing. They were talking about it post-race. He is at such a level that any team would want him, and he isn't going to stick around to finish, on the fringes of the points. So pressures on Red Bull to deliver a car, pressures on Powertrains Ford to deliver an engine. And I think the way that they bounce back this year will give Max a lot of belief and certainly buy the team a bit more time. Because this has been as much as it's not ended up with in some ways you could argue the fact that Red Bull haven't actually completed the job and didn't get Max this title might just, leave a little bit more fire burning. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we'll see. And obviously, last race for Yuki in F1 for the time being. I hope it's not forever, because I do think that Yuki has the ability and could absolutely do a job. I think he needs to keep himself as present in the paddock as he can. He's going to be Red Bull reserve and test driver next year. Do what Albon did, do what Bottas did. Keep yourself available, keep yourself around, keep yourself in these conversations. And perhaps an opportunity presents itself. I certainly hope so. Any driver who, off the back of that Red Bull seat, is out of a seat entirely, like Albon was, is at risk. And I was very, very concerned. Don't get me wrong, very concerned that Albon would not find his way back onto the grid. But Williams took the punt, and I am incredibly grateful to Williams for that. And it's enabled him to rebuild his career. So I hope that Yuki is able to do the same. He's only 25, so he's still got years ahead of him, and there is a very, very quick racing driver in there. Still somewhat rough around the edges, perhaps, but a very, very fast racing driver indeed. There you go. Boom. That's all the teams covered. I feel like I've covered all the main parts. We're an hour 20 in. Of course, Lando Norris is F1 World Champion, of course. Just a quick reminder in case you forgot. The boy got it done. I'm probably going to do a video tomorrow morning. I'm out later in the day tomorrow, but I'm going to try and get it done ASAP tomorrow. Probably just talking about Lando and my feeling of where he is. And I do think this is the start of not Lando 2.0, but I do think it would have really hurt Lando if he'd have not won this. And I think we're going to see a better version of Lando going forward now that he's got this championship ticked off. That's my opinion. But that we're going to talk all about that tomorrow. So, anything else? What have I not covered? Lauren likes Yuki, so I think he'll help Yuki like Christian did Alex. Yeah, look, my understanding, and having spoken to Laurent, he's very close with Yuki, and I hope the same. I really hope that Red Bull help facilitate another move for Yuki in the future. Yuki over Ocon. I know that I do believe the rumours I've heard is that Yuki was on Haas radar. Now, obviously, Yuki's very close with Honda and Toyota. So maybe there's a bit of hang on a second, Honda ex-Honda, maybe Yuki goes to Toyota. I don't really know how that would play out. That could maybe get in the way of Yuki going to Haas. That's just the one thing I'm concerned with, but hopefully he'll find a way back. Anything else? Chat. Next stop, GT and endurance racing. Well, look, again, I think Yuki needs to stick around in the paddock for 26 and hope an opportunity opens up. He can't wait forever, of course, but you never know. It may well open up. We'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. I don't understand the hate towards Lando. Critical hit. Look, I think, and perhaps I'll, dive into my thoughts around this a bit more, but I think, where Lando is obviously, he's a very popular driver. It's fair to say it's not been a convincing title win in terms of he's not been the strongest driver this season. I don't think he's been the second strongest driver this season, but he's got it done. And I think where Max obviously has such a fan base and he was the underdog coming through, and I think also a lot of love for Oscar this year, and then the whole Prix rules. I just think it's lots of things that have come together and have resulted in Lando getting way too much stick, like so disproportionate, and a lot of it just horrible. But, it is what it is. It is what it is. And he hopefully has learnt a way to deal with it better. And this is why I think, getting this championship ticked off is going to put him in a much better place for the remainder of the season. But we'll see. We'll see. Right, I'm going to wrap it there. Thank you all for taking the time so much. Thank you all for the support on the CHINWAG, the podcast this season. Especially as well, shout out to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that. This is a top 5% podcast on Spotify. Video podcast, should I say, on Spotify. So even if you're a YouTube enjoyer, just maybe take this opportunity to go over to your Spotify, because you almost certainly use Spotify, and just give the pod a follow and give it a little interaction of some kind. Because sometimes maybe you won't catch these live, and then maybe that's just an alternative way. Because the thing, be honest, I earn actually about the same amount from the average podcast YouTube view as I do from the average Spotify video review. So obviously if you're here live, you have to be on YouTube. But if you want to support what I do, whether you're here on YouTube, whether you're on Spotify or Apple Pods or whatever, it helps me out. So yes, boom, lovely jubbly. That would be fantastic. I'm going to wrap it there. I'm doing TalkSport tomorrow morning at 7:30 in the morning. So if you can listen to TalkSport in the morning, then you'll hear my voice talking all about this champion. I spent a lot of time talking today. I did obviously watch the race, which was very shouty. Then I did the Red Bull race report straight after the race. Then did a podcast shortly after that. Now doing this. There was another thing. What was the other thing I did? Oh yeah, I did the stream as well before the race ended. I completely forgot about that. I've done so many things today. So I need to rest my voice ready for 7:30 tomorrow. But yeah, thank you all so much for taking the time. Really do appreciate it. And end of season content, driver ratings, reacting to my pre-season predictions as well. And then end of the year quiz, Tommo's big fat F1 quiz of the year, will be back for 2025 between Christmas and New Year. So keep your eyes out for that. And we are essentially done. Thank you all again for taking the time. Pleasure as always. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.